Hi, I'm Mike Papantonio, and this is America's Lawyer. A new lawsuit claims that Twitter was infiltrated by allies of the Saudi royal family who gave him confidential information about people who were critical of the regime. And Jack Dorsey, well, he knew everything about it and did nothing to stop it. People died because of it. President Biden's poll numbers are becoming a major problem for Democrats, whether you want to admit it or not, with a new poll showing that a majority of voters think Republican is a better choice than Biden. That's exactly what these polls are showing right now, one after another. And Donald Trump is facing legal challenges to prevent him from holding office ever again. We'll explain the legal difficulties with that. All that and more, it's coming up. Don't go anywhere. America's Lawyer starts right now. The royal family in Saudi Arabia has been routinely murdering people who are critical of the regime on social media. And a new lawsuit claims that Twitter, under the leadership of Jack Dorsey, was made aware that the Saudis had actually infiltrated his company to send information about critics so government could arrest them and ultimately kill them. That's what Jack Dorsey knew. He had an agreement with this guy because the money was so good. That's what it was about. It was all about money. Jack Dorsey understood that this guy, this freak, had infiltrated the company, had spies everywhere, was taking information that was then used by this freak to have these people murdered.
Yeah, that pretty much lays it out. And we know, based on this lawsuit, there were at least, I believe, 3 individuals with close ties to the Saudi royal family that got these high up positions at Twitter. And they were sending messages. One of them said, proactively and reactively, we will delete evil, my brother.
Yeah.
That is what they sent to the royal family, the Saudi national who had become an official, or not an official, but a higher up at Twitter, who was there getting the information, looking through, seeing who was being critical of the Saudi royal family, and sending that information directly back to them.
And people act like Musk is the psycho here. Jack Dorsey is the friggin' psycho. Jack Dorsey understood exactly what was going on, but he had that cool, creepy kind of mojo tech look, the whole beard, the whole what I call the Mocha Java crowd. He was a Mocha Java celebrity. It was disgusting. And now we find out exactly what he was about. There's zero question. You pointed out at the end of this article, I thought it was really interesting, but they say, look, Jack Dorsey met with this freak who they knew had killed Khashoggi. They knew that. They knew his history of beheading people, an average of 80 people a year, for just being out there and objecting to what this freak was doing to their country. And Jack Dorsey is all in. I got to tell you something. If you're following Block, this new program, stop. Because all you're doing is you are furthering this guy. I put him, look, everybody that was beheaded, everybody that's tied up to this, they need a damn lawsuit against Jack Dorsey, because he knew exactly what was going on.
Yeah, and it gets even worse because the FBI finally figured out that this was happening, that these, essentially spies from Saudi Arabia had become executives at Twitter. So they told Dorsey, they let him know, listen, this is what's happening. They're feeding the information. And so a couple of them did, basically get kicked out of the country. They're now seeking asylum, I guess, in Saudi Arabia. But it was after the FBI warned him and after the big fallout, then Dorsey went and had a private meeting with this guy to, as they said, train and qualify Saudi cadres.
What's his name? Al-Zabara. Is it Al-Zabara? Was that his name? Something like Al-Zabara. So he was the guy in charge. He's the guy that gave that quote that we're going to do away with these filthy trash. Filthy trash were the people who were saying this guy is insane and he's killing people needlessly in this country. This guy was the guy that was finding out all of this information, giving it to him, and Jack Dorsey knew exactly what was going on. Let me just tell you how pissed off I am about it. I invite anybody who's been affected by this, give us a call. We'll get you to the right people, because it's a hell of a lawsuit against Jack Dorsey. And if you're like this Jack Dorsey fan because, well, he was just so cool, he had that beard, he was, Mocha Java celebrity. You are kidding yourselves. Is Musk any better? Hell, I don't know. But I got to tell you, these people just go after, Musk, because Musk did this and Musk. Jack Dorsey was a silent killer. And that's what this is showing right now.
Yeah, and look, we do know Musk still has Saudi money going into
That's
Twitter,
right.
and that is problematic because the money buys access. So, we're not just talking about a government spying on people, which is bad enough. This government is hunting them.
Look, and how about this? Now, this is an aside. The day this love affair that we have with Saudi Arabia, the day that we're celebrating, that we're recognizing what these folks did on 9/11, the U.S. government is agreeing to a deal with Saudi Arabia worth $20 billion on international infrastructure, and they're celebrating what a great leader he is, what a great visionary he is. Arms around him, man. Like, this is the guy that we're all part of. In the same day, MSNBC going off and trying to say, well, 9/11 really wasn't any different than the Allende story. Did you follow that?
I saw a lot of that yesterday.
9/11 wasn't any different than the Allende story. Well, we've talked about the Allende story plenty. But this MSNBC, I don't even know his name. I don't watch MSNBC anymore. But he goes on and says, it's not so bad. U.S. did the same thing with Pinochet down in Chile, right? I don't know. This week has just been one weird story after another. And these stories that surround him, I don't know what it's going to take for the American public to say, this is not our friend. If he could invade and blow us to hell, he would.
And we'd sell him the weapons
And we'd sell him the weapons to do it. Train him right here to do it. President Biden's poll numbers can't get much worse than what a recent CNN poll. Now, get me a CNN poll. It's not Farron and Pap talking. This is a CNN poll. It's about the third poll that's been done, by the way. The new poll reveals that a majority of voters would prefer any Republican candidate. That's exactly the question that was asked, over President Biden. And Nikki Haley has been the best shot at beating him.
That's what was so weird to me.
Yeah, Nikki Haley. Okay, we just did a story on Nikki Haley, right? Nikki Haley is a war pimp. She comes into office a pauper, has nothing, zero. Pull out her pockets, she don't have a dime in her pockets. All of a sudden, she's a multimillionaire. She's living in a $5 million mansion. She's got money flowing everywhere. That's the person that can beat Biden. Scares the hell out of me. Pick it up, would you?
Yeah, I mean, Haley right now in this new poll, 49% versus Biden's 43%. And all of the other Republicans, who pretty much all of them do beat Biden, but they're still within the margin of error.
3 point, yeah.
But Haley blows it out of the water, which again, astounding. But look, 46% of registered voters in this poll said, I would rather have any of these Republicans than that guy. Only 32% for Biden. So 46% to 32. And Democrats are whistling past the graveyard right now thinking like, oh, well, this is not a big deal.
How about our staff says, you'll see the comments where these diehard dummy Democrats say, yeah, he's still the guy. We're going to stick with him till the plane crashes. I used to fly airplanes, and the first thing that you have to do is recognize that you've lost a damn engine, and you better land the aircraft. This guy right here, he ain't going to land the aircraft. And you still got people that can't give up, can't give up on Biden and say, let's take another move. Let's find somebody who can maybe run in that election and beat a Republican.
Well, and we have time. And that's the thing that people don't understand.
Stress that enough.
We have time right now to get another candidate. We can still have a primary. We can have debates. And if Biden emerges at the top at that point, then so be it. But I think given his age, and yes, the age is a huge issue. It's all over the news the last couple weeks. We owe it. I mean, the party owes it to the public.
Here's what really scalds me, okay? 99% of what we do on this station, every day, you're going out with 6, 7 videos beating the hell out of the GOP and Trump and all the ghouls and creeps that surround it. So we come out with one story where we're trying to talk common sense to these snowflakes that can't understand this is not a winner for us. And you got to do something or a Republican is going to be in the White House. Watch what happens on this story. You'll see the staff will come in. Man, we had 5, of course, the numbers are staggering the other way, but the point being The point being, what is it that holds people so tied to this guy? I mean, what is it?
It's the team sports mentality. I mean,
Like
look,
it's a baseball game, right?
yeah, and look, I've had to because it's part of my job here. I've gone through the policy positions of all
And
these
you do a great
Republicans.
job.
And listen, I think he's better than any of these people. But that doesn't mean that I'm saying, yeah, I'm all in on Biden. I'm all in on having a candidate that is capable of winning, capable of going 4 years or more, and making sure that we can keep moving in a
Farron,
positive
we haven't
direction.
talked about this, but what did you think about the Vietnam presser?
It was terrifying.
I was watching it. I remember sending you a note.
Yeah.
You got to watch this. You got to see the guys falling apart to where they have to interrupt him and get him the hell off of the stage. The crazy thing is, about the first, I'd say 5 minutes, he looked pretty good. I mean, we've talked about this before. He starts maybe 5 or 10 minutes. I'm going, wow, great, man. You know, good job, Biden. And all of a sudden, it's like we've talked about that shot that they put in his butt, whatever it is, it starts wearing off.
The sunsetting is basically what it is.
Yes, well put. The sunsetting. I love that. Okay, Florida is no stranger to hurricanes, and the state has always been able to rely on migrant workers to help out after disaster strikes. But following the recent hurricane, the migrant workers are nowhere to be found thanks to the devastating law that was signed by Ron DeSantis. Now, do you remember when the law was signed, how many times we did a story and said, Ron, crazy Ron, this is a problem. Because when the next hurricane comes, we're not going to have anybody to fix the houses. Crazy Ron, you might get control over those legislators in Tallahassee, because when that happens, nobody's going to be here to pick the fruit. Nobody's going to be here to fix the roofs. Nobody's going to be here to rebuild. This is a big problem for Florida. There's an organization, I can't think of the name of the organization, maybe you know, but they coordinate with migrant workers all over the country to where when something like this happens, a disaster, migrant workers come in and they do a spectacular job. I remember 2 hurricanes, they have helped rebuild my home. I mean, fix the roof when nobody else could do it. And I think right now we're seeing exactly what we were talking about, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that group has literally thousands of migrant workers, and they have now said because of this law that DeSantis passed, if we even brought them into Florida, we would be facing Class 3 felony charges. Mm-hmm. So we literally cannot bring our workers in. They want to work, they want the money, they're great at what they do, but if we even so much as drive that bus over the border in Florida, we've just now committed a felony according to this law, not to mention all of these people would be arrested on site.
Yeah, it's even worse than that. If they go to a hospital, the hospital has to report that there's a migrant worker here in the emergency room. If we invalidate their driver's license if we find out they're a migrant worker. We use the E-Verify system to actually just harass them. And so that's what they accomplished here. Now, we have, after the last hurricane, which fortunately, well, it was a bad hurricane. People are out of homes. It was a terrible, terrible experience for some folks up in the Panhandle of Florida. Idalia was the hurricane, and you got work sites that are abandoned. There's nobody there, and that's not the case. You remember when we had hurricanes here? They'd come in. They were great to work with. They were hard workers, man. I'm still friends with several of them that worked on my home. And I just don't know where this takes us. Do you? How bad does it get?
Well, especially for the residents in those areas that were hit by the hurricane, and ones that are going to be hit in the future, because we're going to get a hurricane probably at least every year here in Florida.
Yeah.
They're going to see that, hey, whereas a year ago it would have taken 2 to 3 weeks to start to get our lives back to normal, it's going to be 3 to 4 months before anything resembling normal starts to pop up, because we just simply do not have the manpower to do this.
One problem is you've got the crazy right equating everybody that comes across the border with a cartel. Now, cartel is a problem. The border states down around Texas, it's a big, big problem.
Right.
And it's unfortunate that people that want to come here, they just want to support their family. They want to work here and send checks back home and have a better quality of life. the cartel and the disgusting things the cartel is doing with drugs, with human trafficking, you name it. It's just an abomination. But it's causing so much, it's giving the crazy right so much material to say, hell, we're not going to let anybody in.
Right. And because of that, we end up with laws like this because DeSantis was trying to pander to those people prior to his presidential run, which he's now gone down in flames. I mean, he's got Ramaswamy nipping at his heels, and his numbers are getting worse by the week. And we're the ones in Florida who are still going to suffer under this guy. Luckily, the country won't, but we still have to deal with it.
I tell you one thing. I hope the country wakes up to Nikki Haley, because she is a nutcase. She would drop a bomb on Iran tomorrow if Boeing told her we wanted to start a new war. That's how owned she is by the weapons industry. She is an awful selection. Right now, the public is not seeing that. So, I don't know. He's not going to make it. I don't think he's going to make it. I thought there was a day he could until he started making public appearances. And they said, this guy doesn't have any personality at all. I'd rather have Sleepy Joe fall asleep at the podium than have to endure his personality. The Pentagon has invested millions of dollars into a program to create smart clothing. These smart textiles can track a person's surroundings, capture data from electronic devices, and create this vast surveillance network simply through the underwear. So talk about this. This is a crazy story.
And it's hilarious because the program is actually called Smart E-Pants. So it's Smarty Pants.
Smarty Pants, yeah.
And what they're doing is they're trying to make these clothing, it's your socks, the underwear, pants, and shirts that is somehow has this technology in it capable of, mapping the surroundings, of knowing what electronic devices are near, and as they develop this, it could get even more intense than that.
This is going to work. They're going to come up with it. I mean, that's kind of the crazy part of the story. This spyware is actually going to work, and then we're going to find it's a problem. But the idea is T-shirts, underwear, whatever. We're going to be, you don't need to carry things. You don't need to carry cameras anymore. You don't carry GPSs anymore. It frees up your hands. Isn't that the idea of it?
Yeah, and that's how they're selling it. Like, oh, well, we've got, our soldiers out there. We don't want them to have to, I've got my camera and my weapons. I can't do all this. We'll just spy on them through the shirt. But that's not what it is. What this is you'll see somebody on the street, they'll look like a tourist in their little Hawaiian shirt.
And their underwear is filming you.
Exactly. And it's pulling the data from your electronic devices.
Yeah.
And it's meant to be, I don't know if it's going to be international spying or domestic spying, but we know based on everything that's happened, it will be used against us here in this country.
People won't care. I mean, we're being spied on my God, the spy, we're not doing anything that government doesn't know. I mean, I'm telling you.
Our vacuums are spying on us. We did that
Our
story.
vacuum cleaners are spying on us. And it is getting to the point where you and I could talk about, hey, let's take a trip to Paris. Let's go check out what's going on in Paris. And the next day, or same day, we would get trip to Paris discounts. I mean, we didn't put it in anybody's phone. We didn't put it in anybody's computer. That's how crazy it's gotten out there. But now we're moving to underwear. So hang on. Nancy Pelosi announced last week that she'd be seeking another term in the U.S. House of Representatives as she tries to hold on to the seat that she's had since 1987. This lady's 83 years old. The decision comes when a huge majority of Americans want older generations in Congress to get the hell out, move over for some younger folks that can make it through a day without having to take 3 naps, or being hustled around in a wheelchair. Pick it up, please.
This was, I want to say it was kind of a shocking story. I think we all thought it, but we all kind of had that feeling like, okay, since she stepped down from leadership, clearly she's going to move on. Nancy, you've made more money than you ever could spend in your life. It's time to go. You're 83. She's been in that seat since I was 4 years old. And here she is. I'm 40 now, by the way.
Do we not have anybody that's under 50 years old that's a visionary? I mean, come on, man. The problem is, here's what really bothers me about this, is I remember I went back and looked at some of the quotes that come from her. And she was talking about the idea that we need new blood. We need new blood in D.C. And she'll be 85 years old by the time her next term is over?
Yeah.
85? And you know what it's about? It's about money. I'd love to say that, she makes this statement, democracy is at stake. I'm the only one that can save democracy. And I value democracy, and that's why I'm running. If I don't run, democracy is going to just crush.
And she's in a safe blue district. A Democrat's going to get that seat. Like, let's not pretend she's...
No, she could run anybody in that blue district and win. And then she talks, here's another thing that really set me over the edge. She talks about the values of San Francisco. I want the values of San Francisco imbued to the entire United States. Well, really? There's a mass exodus from San Francisco because of taxes, because of homeless, because of crime, because of drug addiction, people in the streets. She wants those values for America. That's her pitch. I'm going to save democracy, and I want San Francisco values for the entire United States. Come on. It's all about, she's made a lot of money doing this, just like Feinstein has, just like Biden has, just like all these old Republican codgers have. I can name
McConnell.
McConnell. Yeah, McConnell, my God. I mean, he's fighting to his own party just to stay there because the money is so good. It's like Nikki Haley comes in, she's a pauper, and all of a sudden she's a multimillionaire. The money is so good, these people just hang on to the bitter end, don't they?
They absolutely do. And listen, 2 polls came out this week. One showed that 75% of the public thinks that all politicians over the age of 75 should have to have a mental acuity test.
Really? I didn't see that.
77% think we ought to just have age limits right off the top so Pelosi would not be able to hold office, or Trump or Biden or McConnell or Feinstein. And we almost need to move in that direction. I know that's a Herculean task because we'd have to amend the Constitution for it, but the public wants this. They don't want these octogenarians telling us, oh, we don't need to worry about climate change. Well, no, Pelosi doesn't need to worry about climate change. She'll be gone.
Exactly. What about her grandkids and her, that's a really good point. Military firefighters are exposed to a dangerous amount of PFAS chemicals on a regular basis. And so far, the military has been slow to provide adequate testing to soldiers to find out how much chemical they have in their bodies. But even if they do test, there's not much that doctors even understand about this chemical because the industry hid all of the bad medical information about it for 50 years. Now, as you know, I tried the first PFAS cases in America. Tried them with a very good friend of mine, a guy named Rob Bilott, who was, he's a visionary here. He actually figured this out. And the first case I tried was a testicular case, okay? Testicular cancer. That's what these firefighters should be really worried about, is the exposure to PFAS and testicular cancer.
And that is what we're starting to see a rise according to these new reports. And, they don't even know how many of these different kinds of PFAS chemicals are in there. They know there's about, a couple hundred, but we're still not exactly sure. And the tests that they're doing right now on these firefighters, when they're doing tests, they're not testing them all, they're doing blood tests, which can detect a lot of it, but not all of it. Because sometimes these chemicals, as those reports say, it's not just in the blood, it's built up in the organs. And the different chemicals are going to different places in the body. So without actual tissue tests, you cannot get an accurate count of how much exposure these people have had.
We do know that it's so pervasive that it's in the it's in the livers of polar bears.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all over the planet, and there's only two companies that were responsible, 3M and DuPont, spread this toxin all over the planet. And when I was trying to, by the way, we just settled, I guess you saw the headlines, we settled for $14 billion for communities that had their water contaminated. That was just our first run at it. There's a lot more that we're going to do, but at least we got some money to these communities to where they can at least clean up their water and have safe drinking water, because the levels of PFAS in the water was crazy in some of these places. But you know what? Here's the other part of it. When we tried the first few cases up in Ohio, there was what was called a science panel, Farron. And the science panel were the best epidemiologists, toxicologists, the best scientists in the country. And they said they studied it for several years. And they said it's going to cause testicular cancer, it's going to cause kidney cancer, it's going to neurological problems. The list is endless. And the ugly thing about it is that both of these companies knew that. They knew it for 50 years and did nothing about it. tried to cover it up. And so right now, even with that first $14 billion settlement, it's not, I mean, it's a drop in the bucket compared to what these people made, but it's our first step.
Yeah, and you also have the doctors, that are treating these people coming out now and saying, listen, we can do the tests and we can find out how much is in there, but at the end of the day, there's still, all we can do is say, yeah, you've got this. Mm-hmm. They can't get rid of the PFAS out of the body. They can't treat it. So the doctors are kind of sitting there with their hands up saying, but well, now what do we do?
Yeah, let me do a shout out for 3M. It's when I compare the conduct of 3M and DuPont, 3M at least came to the table, okay? They at least said, we want to talk to you about solving the problem. I mean, to me, to do what I do for a living, and you're across these corporations all the time, to have 3M do that, to me, speaks very loud. DuPont, on the other hand, when we were involved in the trial, they tried to move it through bankruptcy court. They created this fake company. It's a real company now. It's called Chemours. And what they did is they said, we want to move all of our liabilities over to this nothing company, and then when the nothing company goes bankrupt, we're through with everything. I love that 3M at least had the decency to say, we have a problem. Let's go to the table and talk about it and do something about it. I know, coming from a plaintiff's lawyer who has been on the other side of this so many times, it's rare that you see that.
Yeah.
Groups across the country are filing legal challenges to Donald Trump's re-election campaign, and they're arguing that the 14th Amendment prevents Trump from being legally able to hold office. But can those arguments hold up in court? Well, we're going to have to answer that question. Go ahead, pick it up, and this is a loser. It's a loser.
Yeah, look, I mean, this is something I've done so many segments on this, and I'll say what I've always said. Listen, do I think that Donald Trump engaged, and spurred these people on January 6th? I absolutely believe that.
I think he did too.
Now, could I prove that in court? Well, I'm not a lawyer, so I wouldn't have the chance, but I couldn't prove it in court. And the reason for that is because there are so many different things with the events of January 6th, not just the 14th Amendment. There's so many different things that are open to interpretation. Was it an insurrection or was it a riot? Was it a protest? Because if it's a riot or a protest, 14th Amendment automatically doesn't apply. Mm-hmm. You're done. Mm-hmm. Case over. So because there's no official declaration, because none of the people have been charged with insurrection, you can't even base it off, okay, well, we charged 8 people with insurrection.
Right.
There's no legal basis almost for this to even be there.
Here's where it really, this is the bell ringer. Okay. Oh, first of all, you and I are supposed to yell at each other according to the MAGA Dems. Farron, why don't you yell at Mike when he says something about Biden or says something about, and I'm supposed to yell at you when we disagree. We don't yell. We have a conversation just like the one we're having right now. So we've known each other for 21 years? Yeah. We've been doing this for 21 years. So we're not children, and we're not going to yell and scream at each other when we disagree. I love that about doing this show. But here's the problem. You've got the National Socialist Party of America versus the Village of Skokie. Now, that is the premier, just do a search, that is the premier U.S. Supreme Court case that says that even if he did some of this, so what? Okay? That's a case, Farron, where the Supreme Court had to make a decision. Do we allow Nazis, I mean hundreds of Nazis, to walk through an area of Skokie, the village of Skokie, where you have most of the people in there had been Holocaust survivors. The number of Jewish Holocaust survivors was over the top. But the Supreme Court says we're still going to allow them to walk through with bullhorns, talking about Jews, with Nazi flags, with doing what they want to do. That case kills the possibility of anything happening here where it comes to inciting a riot. And I got to tell you something, I'm convinced that's what he wanted to do. I mean, I don't have any doubt. Yeah. But you've got a First Amendment issue, you've got precedent, you've got so much precedent. The National Socialist Party of America versus Village of Skokie is just overwhelming. I mean, just read it and you go, this is like the very edge of saying, yeah, you can do what you want to do.
Well, and I'm sure there's going to be people that say, yeah, okay, y'all are talking about the Capitol riot, but what about his attempts to overturn the election results. Okay, we'll address that right now too. Does that rise to the level of an insurrection? Well, who was the government of that day? That was him. Was he launching an insurrection against himself?
That's right.
No, he's launching an insurrection, according to this lawsuit, against, at that point, a hypothetical.
Yeah.
Something that had not yet happened. So you can't, and again,
We-
I
we-
don't want this guy to ever be in the office ever again.
I don't either,
Right.
Barry. Unlike what every time we say anything that says, hey, think about this other side, it's like, oh my God, you let Pap say that and didn't respond. Hell no. We have to talk intelligently. We have to be grown-ups as we talk about stuff like this.
Yeah.
And I'm just telling you, that Skokie case kills the possibilities here, destroys the possibilities. Now, people aren't going to like that, but that's just the truth.
Well, and look, we're not here to always make you feel warm and fuzzy.
No, hell,
but
I
I don't
don't-
want y'all getting your hopes up thinking that, hey, we're going to block him from the
I
ballot. You're
could
not.
care less about making people feel warm and fuzzy. That's not what we do here. We're supposed to deliver our opinions about the news, and that's what we do. And without yelling at each other, without, hey, let's arm wrestle, Farron. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I mean, you want to keep the guy out of office, show up and vote against him next November. That's the way to do it.
Exactly. Farron, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
That's all for this week, but all these segments will be available throughout next week, and make sure you follow us on Twitter at America's Lawyer. I'm Mike Papantonio, and this has been America's Lawyer, where we tell you the stories that corporate America won't tell you because their advertisers don't allow them to tell you, because they're going to lose money if they do, or their political connections don't allow for it. They're either too Democrat or they're too Republican, so they don't tell the story. We see that constantly. But you know what? We'll always tell you the story, whether you want to hear it or not. See you next time.